Dear colleagues, dear parliamentarians, I will ask you to participate in some short, 5-minute short break. We should discuss about our statement project a little bit, but we should. I asking you and invited to near the coffee to meet in the room, meeting room near the coffee. Excuse me, not from all delegation, only from Lithuanian, Latvian, and Estonian side parliamentarians, please. Inkas. Gerai. Jo, aš pasakysiu. Dear colleagues, let's continue our work. And now we will share with my colleague, Foreign Minister, Mr. Gabrielius Landsbergis, and let's continue our work. Gerbiami kolegos, Baltijos asamblėja glaudžiai bendradarbiauja su Baltijos ministrų.
The Baltic Assembly and the Baltic Council of Ministers work closely together, and we coordinate our actions and promote common initiatives. May I welcome the foreign ministers of the three Baltic states. I can just note that a few minutes ago we had emphasized our common understanding about the cooperation. The mode of cooperation is to be continued and strengthened in the future. Let me thank personally our ministers Gabrielius Landsbergis, Edgars Rinkevičius and Eva Maria Limets, and call for even closer cooperation in the future. We have prepared an overview on the implementation of the recommendations of the Baltic Assembly by the Baltic Council of Ministers for a period of 2020-2021. All the participants have received the implementation review, and I would just like to mention a few main conclusions. Firstly, cooperation has been quite active and practical results have been achieved in security and defense, energy, transport and infrastructure, as well as healthcare. Despite good progress in these fields, there are still many tasks in the forthcoming years. Second, our countries continue the coordination of their positions regarding the EU agenda. This work has become even more intense and targeted. Thirdly, we see there is progress in the issues that have been on the agenda of the Baltic Assembly for quite some time. And let me first of all note the joint military and medical procurements. Fourth, the Baltic states have learned a lot from the COVID-19 crisis and are ready to work together to find the best solutions for the mitigation of crisis. Unfortunately, there are also fields where the cooperation is slower. No progress has been achieved in evaluating the potential impact of the pandemic in the health and social sector. Some activities have been carried out on a national level and in specific areas, but the overall potential impact of the pandemic, we have to admit, remains still undetected. This task could be carried out in 2022 when the governments of the three Baltic states have more time to reflect on the past decisions and the overall impact. Regretfully, no progress has been achieved regarding the discussions about the Baltic Innovation Fund 3. This, however, does not raise many worries, as the countries believe that there will be a need for such discussions and that these talks could start in 2022. No progress has been achieved regarding joint projects to recycle used textiles and a common approach and measures to eliminate waste tourism. The activities in these fields are absent or are carried out only on the national level, and therefore we believe that this issue will be addressed. Dear colleagues, now I would like to give the floor to the Chair of the Cooperation Council of the Baltic Council of Ministers and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, Mr. Gabrielius Landsbergis.
Marija, gerbiamas Edgarai, gerbiamasis Baltijos asamblėjos pirmininkė,
Madam Eva Maria,
gerbiami Estijos, Latvijos ir Lietuvos parlamento pirmininkai,
President,
parlamentarai, ministrai,
speakers,
ponios ir ponai.
ministers, ladies and
Sveiki atvykę į
gentlemen,
Vilnių.
welcome to
Pastebėjome,
Vilnius.
jog pandemija sutrikdė
All the
svarbiausių
observations that the
susitikimų
pandemic has impacted organization of the meetings and the international cooperation is true.
Tačiau kiek pasikeitus
We
pandemijos
have
aplinkybėms Lietuvoje,
learned to work
galėdamas
differently.
jūs visus
And
pakviesti,
still,
pasveikinti
I am very
Vilniuje
happy today
vykstantį
to welcome you
tradicinį
all
Baltijos Tarybų
to the
tarybos susitikimą.
regular Baltic Assembly meeting. The COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the crisis of illegal migration, are factors that made us realize that we have very serious reasons to strengthen our cooperation. Maybe another crisis is going to be quite different. However, the challenges of today clearly show that we can cope with challenges only by joint action. Lithuania is presiding over the Baltic Assembly and the Baltic Council of Ministers this year. And the crisis that we are facing only emphasize the importance of our cooperation. The pandemic is not yet over, and the pandemic takes away our loved ones, which is the saddest. This is why should we put every effort to control the pandemic, work together, support each other's healthcare systems. Particularly, we should put more effort in trying to convince people about the positive effect of the vaccine. Working together, we are going to cope with the winter season, which I hope will be the last complicated time. The hybrid attack of Belarus next to the external borders of the EU has been lasting for 6 months already. This strategy of the Lukashenko regime is going hand in hand with disinformation campaign. We cannot just remain observers. The solution in this situation is just the united, tough response to Lukashenko regime by European Union sanction package. For this, we need the amendments to the existing EU legislation, as well as the financial support to protect the external borders of the EU. On the 7th of October, we have presented a letter to the European Commission, our joint letter to the European Commission, with the proposals to deal with the crisis. What I would like to note is that the attack against the region by Belarus has brought Baltic states even closer and shows that we are ready to support each other, all the necessary support and resources, and undertake the necessary actions to cope with such attacks. Russia's aggressive stance becomes one of the main challenges in our region. Russia is continuing its policy by using military power. The Kremlin regime is continuing discreditation campaign of the Western world. The tendencies are getting worse. Despite of the economic and pandemic difficulties, Russia is still strengthening its military capacities and also organizing trainings with aggressive scenarios. During the Zapad training, which was held in September this year, it showed its readiness to reinforce its military capacities. During the training, we could witness the increasing military integration of Russia and Belarus. But not only that, we see some attempts to create a union state. This is why the whole alliance has to look very attentively at the processes that take place today. The hybrid war that we are seeing, also the diplomatic pressure, is an attempt to rewrite our history. It actually poses a threat to the whole NATO alliance. We strongly support the presence of United States and other allies in our region. However, we should put more effort in enforcing our own military capabilities. It is of vital importance for the Baltic states to implement our commitments for NATO. Lithuania is spending 2% of its GDP on defense purposes. NATO advanced power unit in Lithuania, led by Germany, as well as allies in other Baltic countries, play a vital role in deterrence of Russia. NATO adaptation process should focus on deterrence and defense tasks. The new defense strategy has to reflect the factor of Russia and Belarus, as well as the response to a hybrid threat. We should also look at the challenge posed by China. The presence of the US forces, its leadership in NATO, is a cornerstone as far as our security is concerned. Also, other transatlantic partners like Canada and the United Kingdom, their involvement is also key. The events in Belarus raise a lot of concern, not only because of the violence against peaceful protesters. The opposition representatives have been imprisoned for long years or had to flee, leaving behind their families and their home country. A lot of NGOs in Belarus are labeled as terrorists and anti-state actors. A hybrid attack is in place against Lithuania, Poland, and other countries, including even Germany, where roughly 1,000 of illegal migrants is estimated every day. Unity, preservation of unity, is extremely important for us. We should show that all the agreements between Belarus and Russia are illegitimate and that the package of sanctions is not final. Nevertheless, I believe that the nation of the reviving Belarus will finally be liberated from the aggressor's regime, and that the democratic forces will win finally. We should also keep focusing our attention on Ukraine and Georgia, where Russia continuously violating its commitments. We don't see any other way but just impose the continuous pressure and apply sanctions. In Russia itself, we see the continuous violation of human rights. And this is why we should intensify our efforts in supporting opposition leaders and peaceful actions. As far as Ukraine is concerned, we should also continue to attract the attention of the international community on Crimea. We also look at Nagorno-Karabakh region in Caucasus, because the safe, stable neighborhood in the east contributes to strengthening the security of the European Union itself. This is why we should focus on strengthening of the Eastern Partnership. We believe that the summit of the Eastern Partnership on the 15th of December will confirm long-term strategy and the vision. The associated partners, Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia, have made a very big progress, and this is why we should listen to their expectations and support them. In the process of this globalization, we should look even further than that. In the region of India and Pacific, we have a duty to contribute to the international cooperation based on protection of human rights. It is important not to make mistakes when choosing partners. With Russia threatening its neighbors, China tries to impose its rules of game. This is why we should join Australia, South Korea, Taiwan in defending human rights and economic cooperation based on democratic values. Lithuania is experiencing a lot of pressure from China now because of our support to Taiwan, and we are experiencing economic sanctions. However, we have to say that Lithuania has done nothing that would violate China's interests. We are not going to alter our commitment to support one China policy. However, what we seek is a respectful dialogue, and I would like to thank Latvia and Estonia for its support. By cooperating with China, we have to be united and speak in one voice. There cannot be different paths. We need united foreign and security policy of the EU and a coordinated approach as far as China is concerned. Energy security is where the Baltic states have to deepen their cooperation.
By diversifying the routes and sources of energy and moving towards green energy. Up to 2025, this period will be very important for the Baltic states in desynchronizing the electricity networks and synchronizing with Europe. We condemn the Belarusian nuclear power plant, its launch and ignore of requirements. We are happy about the decision of the Baltic states to allow no access of the Belarusian electricity to our countries. This is the issue of priorities. We need to be clear about our vision. The project in Astravets, the nuclear power plant, is the project at the borders of NATO, is a strategic project. The nuclear power plant in Astravets poses a great threat to the synchronization project. We see the diversification of energy resources an important aspect. It will help us to ensure industry and energy security. The gas pipeline with Poland and the Baltic connector will help us to expand our energy market. We focus particularly on the Rail Baltica project and its implementation. This project has to be implemented by 2026. It is extremely vital to our region. It is our gate to Europe. This project has reached the level of majority in Lithuania. We have to do everything to ensure this rail route. It will need a lot of efforts on our part. We see new threats emerging, the change of security circumstances, hybrid measures used by third countries, disinformation campaigns, nuclear facilities. And in the face of all that, we must preserve the unity of the Baltic states. A hybrid attack of Lukashenko and the military buildup between Russia and Belarus is our new reality. It is only by joint effort we can address all this. I hope that the Baltic states will remain vigilant and mobilized in the face of these threats. I wish success in the Latvian presidency next year. I thank Your Excellency, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania. Colleagues, you have an opportunity to ask questions.
From this microphone or from your seat?
Maybe the first question with respect to some issues. If we are looking in this comprehensive analysis made by Baltic Assembly, we see that some shortcomings.
Is near microphone.
Oh, okay. We can say in this our report some shortcomings, and one is with respect people. That no specific measures or bilateral agreements on the free movement of workers between the Baltic states. In the beginning of this week, I participated in Nordic Council in Copenhagen, and a lot of discussions in Nordic countries started about this movement and movement of working force and automatic recognition of professional certificates. In Baltic countries, we have automatic recognition of higher education diplomas. Maybe the next step could be automatic recognition of professional certificates to make more free movement between different professions, including medical professions and so. Could you say some comments on that? Could we move in that direction? Thank you.
Well, I can only speak in principle that the question seems logical, and I think that there's a way to really look into this. We can talk with my colleague Edgars about and Eva, basically, because I think it should cover all three countries. And I think we can pass the question to our education ministers, which would lead the process. I don't see why we should not do this.
Maybe short comment. It's a question not only on education ministers, but it's more economics, because professions, it's more field of the economic ministry, at least in our country, in Latvia. But it's only the first.
Okay, thank you. Ir Kviečiu
Now I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Edgars Rinkevičius, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Latvia, to present the program of the Latvian presidency of the Baltic Council of Ministers next year and the priorities of the presidency.
Honorable President of the Baltic Assembly, honorable parliamentarians, fellow ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for me to address the Baltic Assembly today at its 40th session. This year has been eventful for us as we celebrated the 30th anniversary of restoring the independence of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. I would also like to extend my warmest congratulations to the Baltic Assembly on its 30th anniversary. In a way, this is also an anniversary year for me, as this is the 10th time I address the Baltic Assembly as Foreign Minister. I would like to thank the members of the Baltic Assembly for their close cooperation over the years and in this challenging time for all of us. This period proves that the cooperation between Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia has a special and important value, and it has become even closer. Dear all, I would like to express my appreciation for the work carried out by the Lithuanian presidency in the areas that have traditionally been significant for the cooperation between the Baltic states. I thank my colleague, Mr. Landsbergis, for ensuring the success of the Baltic cooperation in these challenging times. I believe that it is crucial for us to maintain close coordination on COVID-19 issues, and we all understand that. I would therefore like to thank in particular the line ministries, which are key players in the success of the Baltic cooperation. Our priority is vaccination coverage. We need to continue the discussion on lessons learned from the pandemic and on strengthening the resilience of the EU as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to strengthening security in the region, we need joint security and defense planning, effective border management, and information security. Our region must be prepared to respond to a changing security environment, which is regularly threatened by harmful hybrid activities, primarily carried out by Russia and more recently by Belarus. In this sense, transatlantic relations and the unity of the European Union are still both important to us. Security solutions are becoming increasingly global and interlinked with other international policy areas, such as the rule of law or trade. Therefore, coordinated cooperation between transatlantic partners is significant to us. This includes the EU, the USA, and Canada. Modernizing the structure and increasing the readiness of NATO forces is essential for the Baltic region in order to make NATO's collective defense and deterrence efforts more effective. One of the key tasks in development of the NATO strategic concept and the meeting of NATO ministers of foreign affairs in Riga will be the first foreign ministers' discussion on the concept. Distinguished colleagues, we want to see such elements in this concept, namely that the presence of NATO in these countries remains significant. Second, we need to come to an agreement on a joint stance in this field, and we also need to strengthen NATO's response to different types of hybrid threats. Finally, we must not forget the open doors policy, taking into account that at least 2 countries are expecting to join the alliance. So, distinguished colleagues, the Eastern Partnership Summit must show that the EU and the partner countries are willing and able to move closer and ensure the sustainability and development of the Eastern Partnership policy. We need to strengthen our existing cooperation with Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova while maintaining the Eastern Partnership as a single platform. These countries should be given the opportunity for gradual integration into the EU internal market, and sectoral cooperation should be deepened, including in the areas of security and defense. We must continue to support Ukraine in its reform process. It is of essence for Ukraine to continue the reforms it has initiated, in particular regarding the justice system and the fight against corruption. Our friends need to be aware of the importance of reforms not only in pursuing its Euro-Atlantic integration course, but also in strengthening the resilience of the country. On the situation in Belarus, I believe that a strong fifth round of sanctions would attest to the unity of the EU. We must support changes in the EU legislation that would allow member states to better protect their borders. At the same time, we need to provide direct and strong support to the Belarusian civil society, NGOs, and independent media. There aren't many positive trends in Russia's domestic political processes and foreign policy activities. A principled stance is needed in relations with Russia, for which it is crucial to have a united response to Russia's violations of international law regarding foreign relations and Russia's violations of human rights and democratic freedoms within the country. This must be the response of the EU and NATO as well. Dear all, we can be pleased that in our regional cooperation there are also good news. Namely, the Real Baltica project has entered the execution phase with the aim of completing the project as soon as possible. At the same time, we need sufficient funding and efficient use of the allocated funding. It is also important to develop a single corridor in both Via Baltica and Rail Baltica infrastructure. We must also keep moving forward in the energy sector, as the timely synchronization of the Baltic electricity networks with the European grid by 2025 is among our top priorities. The regional gas market established by Latvia, Estonia, and Finland is operating well and could be a good example for other regions of the EU. As for the current increase in energy prices, it is mainly driven by global factors, and the new situation needs to be addressed through EU-level support and solutions. In the short term, member states should focus on measures that could mitigate the increase in prices for households and businesses as quickly as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2022, Latvia will take over the presidency in the Baltic Assembly and the Baltic Council of Ministers. I can assure you that we will continue the successful cooperation of the Baltic Council of Ministers with the Baltic Assembly. At the same time, I consider it important to carry on with the projects that have already been initiated, which will ensure the continuity of previous presidencies, thus enabling us to achieve better results in our work to ensure the stability and sustainable development of the region. We have therefore prioritized strengthening regional security and defense, countering hybrid threats and disinformation, modernizing economy by advancing green and digital transition, connectivity, and development of regional infrastructure projects, as well as strengthening strategic and ambitious Eastern Partnership and supporting civil society in Belarus. Next summer, Latvia will host the 7th Summit and Business Forum of the Three Seas Initiative. There will be also a parliamentary dimension to this. We want the Three Seas Initiative Summit in Riga to promote transatlantic cooperation as well as cooperation between countries in the region by stimulating investment for the growth of the entire region, especially in the areas of energy and transport. We count on your support in the further progress of these important issues for the region. Thank you for your attention.
Ačiū gerbiamam Latvijos užsienio reikalų ministrui.
Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Latvia. Colleagues, do you have any questions?
Please, Yanis. The floor is yours.
Paldies, ministra kungs, par
Thank you, Mr. Minister, for this view. I would like to pose you a question regarding one of the issues that you touched upon in your speech about the 3 Cs initiative. It will take place in Riga, Latvia. So you mentioned the parliamentary dimension. As head of the Latvian delegation, I truly support this dimension within the 3 Cs initiative, but maybe you could give more precise information on what you expect from the Baltic Assembly in this particular forum. So what could be our contribution? Thank you for the question. Indeed, we have begun close cooperation with our colleagues from the Parliament of Latvia, the Foreign Affairs Committee, and the Presidium of the Seima. I would like to say that what we expect from the parliamentary dimension, this would be an indirect response about the Baltic Assembly as well. So first, if we talk about discussions on investors and businesses from different countries, this not only concerns the 3 Cs initiative, but also the USA and Japan. We talk about specific issues where we need to specify our legislation. Often we have discussions where we stress not that much the entrepreneurship, laws and regulations, but what is interesting, we talk more on digital security standards, common digital security standards, because investors are worried by this more than even the business policies that we have in our countries. So information technologies areas are involved in this, and their specialists are involved in the area. So if we discuss about how to concretize these digital issues in the legislation of in each of our countries, this would be very important for the parliamentary dimension. Second, we also talk about information and views and exchange of information and views. So on the ways how we could stimulate these investments regarding green transition and digital transition and the energy field as well. All the countries of the 3 Cs initiatives are members of the EU, but in several areas the EU legislation is not enough, the EU framework is not sufficient, so here the discussions could be productive as well. And third, parliaments have always been a provider of very strong supporter and messenger when it comes to communication with NGOs and NGO projects. So support and communication work regarding this area is important to the public. So this could be carried out both separately by parliamentary delegations and the 3 Cs initiative, but if the Baltic Assembly could spare some time to produce a coordinated approach in this area, this would certainly make the Baltic voice stronger in the context of these discussions. Thank you.
Thank
you, Minister. And now I would like to give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Eva Maria Limets, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Estonia, to share Estonia's position about the development of the cooperation between the Baltic states.
Members of the Baltic Assembly, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, It is my great honor to talk to you on the 27th Baltic Council of Ministers to give my contribution to the overview of what we have achieved this year together. First of all, I would like to thank the current presidency of Lithuania, especially my good colleague Gabrielis Landsbergis, and the president of the Baltic Assembly, Andrius Kupčinskas, for the excellent work in directing the Baltic cooperation this year. This year has been very significant for our three countries. It's 100 years from the recognition of our countries, and in August also 30 years from the restoration of our independence. Congratulations, friends. Ministers, members of the Baltic Assembly. I'm very happy that today we had the opportunity to see face-to-face in this beautiful plenary hall of the Seimas. Last year, when Estonia held the presidency, we were unfortunately forced to meet online. I recognize Latvia for, despite the COVID-caused difficult situation, we have made steps forward successfully and in almost all of our priority fields: security and defense, digital and green transition, regional infrastructure projects, Eastern Partnership, and the COVID situation. COVID-19 pandemic has caused a situation in our healthcare, and it's very serious in all our countries. Sadly, this autumn we are seeing again a bigger number of infections. In order to overcome the pandemic, we need to achieve a sufficient level of vaccination in our societies. Thanks to the close cooperation of the Baltic states, in the spring we received the necessary amounts of vaccination, and we have made efforts to achieve the necessary level of vaccination. But the pandemic is not yet over, and therefore it's important that Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania share information very closely and cooperate. Only through this we will be able to help our nations and support each other. Ladies and gentlemen, the cornerstone of the Baltic security is and remains NATO and close transatlantic relations. I am happy to assure you that the Baltic cooperation in NATO is very efficient, and we make every effort to strengthen the deterrence and defense positions of our region. Last week, the 27th of October, I hosted in Tallinn the so-called Bucharest 9 cooperation platform, or the foreign ministers of the NATO Eastern flank. We discussed the security situation in Euro-Atlantic region, the implementation of the recent NATO summit, and the preparation for the next strategic conception of the alliance. Our Latvian colleague Edgars Rinkēvičs will be able to greet the NATO foreign ministers in Riga at the end of this month. And also we are interested in a more efficient cooperation between NATO and EU. For us, the Baltic states, it's important that Europe and USA have a confidential relation and close cooperation. Both the Baltic states and Europe see the presence of the United States, including in the military field, as especially crucial. This is why it's absolutely vital that we keep the strong transatlantic relations and make every effort not to have our internal discourse cause any harm there. I'm especially happy that the NATO-Baltic air policing mission and combat groups protect us and are present in our countries. We are thankful for that. But Baltic states don't support each other only as allies. We also make sure that our defense spending would be at least 2% GDP. There are three control centers in Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. In Adaši, there's the Northern Division headquarters. This increases the Baltic defense capacity even further. In conclusion, the Baltic defense cooperation is very close and diverse. Just as important is cyber and hybrid threats protection, for which we have NATO centers of excellence in our region. We can also not bypass our neighborhood because an important role in ensuring the stability of a region also lies with our neighbor countries. Promoting the Eastern Partnership policy of the European Union is one of the main foreign policy objectives of the Baltic states, and we're looking forward to the Eastern Partnership Summit in December to agree on its future directions. The Baltic states wish to bring the Eastern Partnership countries closer to the European Union. And I would like to again reiterate our strong support to Ukraine and its sovereignty and territorial integrity. While I spoke about COVID-19 pandemic above, another complicated situation in our region is the hybrid threat caused by Belarus. It's very regrettable that there are countries who use for political objectives people in a vulnerable situation and also the wish to settle in Europe. Since August, since July, the Lithuanian and Latvian border guards have been facing the pressure from illegal immigration because the Belarus regime attracts people with empty promises on the border of Lithuania and Latvia. But these borders are also the external border of the European Union. Estonia has contributed helping Lithuanian border guards at the Baltic level as well as the EU level. It is clear that the instrumentalization of migration needs to be dealt with more broadly. We need specific and quick solutions to take care of situations, which means that the European Union regulations need to be updated to correspond to the new reality. Estonia, as a temporary member of the UN Security Council, has organized the area format meetings to discuss the situation in Belarus. The last took place in the 8th of October this year. 32 countries participated last time, which shows how important democracy and human rights are seen around the world. Ministers, members of the Baltic Assembly. Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania are united by our common history, but not only. Already we started improving communications in our region. We have many strategic infrastructure projects underway. Rail Baltic, the synchronization of Baltic energy grids with the European continental grid, and developing regional gas market. These projects are not important only to improve connections, but also to improve the security and resilience of a region. Rail Baltic is underway in all Baltic states. Many objects are ready, many are just starting. I assure you that big work is being done to carry this out. We also continue with the synchronization of electricity networks by the set deadline 2025. Both projects have a strong support from the European Union, which proves how important it is to tie the Baltic countries to the rest of Europe. I also want to mention the need to develop a common regional gas market. Next year, the gas connection between Lithuania and Poland will be completed, and what would be more natural than to extend this to Estonia, Latvia and Finland, and this will increase the energy security in our region. Every one of us needs to deal with climate change and contribute towards making the living environment good for the next generations. We assure you that we are ready to find solutions in moving towards climate neutrality and achieve this in our region. It is important to develop cooperation in renewable energy, including making sure that the project also have the European Union support. Estonia sees wind parks in open seas as our main energy source in the future, which also allows us to contribute towards climate goals. In long-term perspectives, the wind farms on Baltic states. Talking about the condition of the Baltic Sea, it continues to be a worry for us. We need to lessen all the plastics and pollution in the sea. We need to share the responsibility in keeping the sea viable and clean. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to all above, there is also a close cooperation in science, culture, and many other fields between Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. An important step forward has been made in the mutual recognition of higher education qualification, where in cooperation between Baltic states, we have achieved an agreement with the Benelux states of Belgium, Luxembourg, and Netherlands. Our researchers are cooperating in many scientific programs, for example, the Baltic Scientific Network, and also the Baltic Cultural Fund has been launched very successfully and is receiving an impressive number of applications. In healthcare, we would like to move forward with digital prescriptions and right now we have this between Estonia and Finland, but we would also like to have it in the Baltic region. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I'm happy to say that for our neighbors who think the same as us, are afraid, our cooperation is close. There are fields where we have common interests and goals, and by promoting these together, we are more efficient in our region, in the European Union, but also in international organizations. A sign of close cooperation is that I meet my Lithuanian and Latvian colleagues, Gabrielius and Edgars, so often, and not only in the Baltic capitals, but also around the world. Thank you again for Lithuania for this year's presidency, and I wish all the success to the Latvian presidency next year. Thank you for attention, and long live Baltic cooperation.
Ačiū gerbiamai ministrai, gerbiami kolegos.
Thank you to the minister. Colleagues, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, ministers, about your speeches. And I have basically a question for Latvian and Lithuanian foreign ministers, and also for Latvian and Estonian. And you mentioned in your speech the offshore wind farms on the Baltic Sea. And we in Baltic Assembly, we have talked about this already years ago, building a joint project in offshore wind farms on the Latvian-Estonian border in the sea. So can you update us on the progress that we have on practical level? And for Lithuanian and Latvian ministers, I have the same question, but with additional thing that we still don't have this sea border between Lithuania and Latvia, because previously, historically, we had these problems with agreeing on the oil that is possibly under the seabed, right? But now we are now focusing on new energy projects like offshore wind farms. And what is the progress then on the negotiations about the border, sea border between Latvia and Lithuania, and also the wind farm projects? So questions for all three, I guess, of the ministers. Thank you.
So thank you very much for this very important question, because indeed we have committed to achieve climate neutrality by 2050, and to achieve this goal we need renewable energy sources, and these wind parks is one of the great opportunities for this. And as our electric energy grid is and will be even more integrated, then of course it is logical to have also offshore wind parks which are which are done together. And I'm really glad to report that the Estonian-Latvian offshore wind park is well in progress, and we plan to make it ready, if I'm not mistaken, it was 2027. And so we very much look forward that it is ready by this agreed time, and we also have used this as an example in our negotiations with other neighboring countries, and I hope that it will be a leading example so that we will have more joint wind parks here in the future.
Thank you for the question. I see that Latvian delegation is very active today. All the questions are coming from the colleagues. Just to say that I think Eva Maria just very correctly answered to the question, so I have nothing to add. I'll just go ahead with the second question, which is about the sea border. Well, it's not correct, we do have the sea border between Latvia and Lithuania, and we have the agreement, the treaty that has been signed more than 20 years ago. It has not been ratified by the Latvian parliament because we now are working, we believe that it would be correct that the ratification of the sea border treaty would be made with also the agreement that needs to be prepared and needs to be signed on economic cooperation. When Prime Ministers of Latvia and Lithuania met in June, they agreed to restart the work, and they agreed on some elements for the discussion, where oil is not going to be the principal issue, where cooperation in the field of renewable energy would be instead as the focus. I know that Lithuania has now nominated the new chief negotiator on their side, and we are in close cooperation with our Ministry of Economy preparing the mandate for our team. They will meet, and hopefully the economic cooperation agreement between the Republic of Latvia and the Republic of Lithuania could be worked out in a reasonable time. Definitely, we also need to take into account that next October is a very important period in our political calendar where our elections are going to take place. But so I don't know if we will be able to prepare and to submit to the Parliament this agreement, and then also to ratify if Parliament gives the consent to the economic cooperation agreement, then to ratify both treaties at the same time. But the aim that has been explicitly expressed by both Prime Ministers and reiterated by me and also Gabrielius is that we want to close this chapter, we want to have this sea border treaty ratified, economic cooperation agreement signed and also ratified, and that instead of trying to become OPEC members to try to lead the region and the world in the green economy and renewables. So I cannot speak about detailed issues of that agreement as those have not been discussed between delegations, but I very much hope that by the end of this month in Latvian government, in close coordination with Ministry of Economy, will be able to agree on the new mandate to the delegation and to continue work and present to both parliaments some tangible results as soon as possible.
So there are very few things left to add to what Edgar said. Indeed, we had a very excellent meeting earlier this year between the Prime Ministers and the Ministers, additional to what we have almost every week with Edgar's. The basic idea was, is oil really the major obstacle? Should it remain the major obstacle for our agreement? Since we're both countries as members of the EU transitioning towards the green economy, refusing to, by going basically to the way of refusal of fossil fuels. And therefore the Lithuanian side is, we made sure that we're ready to negotiate a new attitude, probably, which is the more important thing to the whole agreement. So indeed, we have appointed a new negotiator from our side. That's Vice Minister of my Minister of Foreign Affairs. He has a team already under him for that process. So we're just waiting for a green light from Riga, and we would be ready to go. And hopefully we really can move faster, not wait one more decade for that.
Yes, thank you all for answers. I just want to add that I urge also the members of the parliament, especially from Latvia and Lithuania, not to hesitate to conclude these agreements and make them done as soon as possible. We have been stuck into this issue for a long time, and I think it's time to resolve it. So when it comes to parliaments, I hope both parliaments will move fast and ratify the agreements. Thank you.
I would like to thank ministers for your reports at the Baltic Assembly session. Colleagues, I can now we have a joint statement, draft statement of the Baltic Assembly and the Baltic Council of Ministers on the cooperation of the Baltic states, and this is the document that sets the system of cooperation between the Baltic Assembly and the Baltic Council of Ministers in 2022. You have all received this document with the translation, so do you have any questions related to that statement? I'm sorry that we have had a delay with this matter, but I hope that during the Latvian presidency we will manage to avoid such minor misunderstandings. Do you have any questions, remarks related to this document?
Please, Yanis, microphone is yours.
Maybe small remark or small question from my side. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Edgars Rinkēvičs, answering to my question, said that maybe Baltic countries could be frontrunners with respect to other European Union countries in some directions of our common work. In this joint statement, there are some sentences about green transition and without any concrete date. We know that in European Union we are speaking about this green transition, and we are mentioning 2050 as a final date. Between parliamentarians we started discussion. Maybe we can pause a little bit earlier for our countries. Estonians said that no, it's very expensive. Maybe I can ask ministers for short comments, how it looks from the ministerial point of view. Could we be frontrunners in European Union in this aspect? Thank you.
Well, it is very expensive. It is very, very expensive. And let's face it, I think that we still have internal discussions in each of our governments, where you have different ministries, especially responsible for transportation, for economy, for agriculture, also putting a lot of questions and also talking about the need to address some of very difficult issues, because On one hand, we all want to invest in new technologies. We want to use that money that has been allocated by the multi-annual financial framework funds as well as recovery funding to make our economies agile. But on the other hand, there are also very strict things that we must do to eliminate emissions. So now representing more government than the foreign ministry, because foreign ministries always like to be leaders and to jump ahead of curve. I would caution against putting too much emphasis or too much priority on things that we still need to work out internally. I don't know how it is in Lithuania or Estonia, but from our perspective, I would say that let's do our best to become leaders, and let's do it by deeds, but let's not make commitments that all of a sudden we can not honor.
Yes, any questions more or remarks? Please, Sven.
Yeah, I just want to mention that we had discussions today in a very late about these dates and maybe a bit more ambitious, but we made agreement that it will be as it mentioned in this declaration. And for future, I think it will be better if these documents will be a little bit earlier on a table. Thank you. But we agreed from Estonian side to sign it.
Thank you, dear Sven, for your remarks.
Colleagues, if in case there are no questions, proposals, I would like to invite Gabrielius Landsbergis to sign the joint statement. But before that, I would like to invite you all for a family photo. First of all, the heads of the delegations of the Baltic states, and then also everyone else, including our guests. Thank you.
Ministries, after that, all of us. Yes.
Galima žingsnį ir prie pat stalo. Gerai ateiti ir tas kėdės. Arba kėdės už. Galėtume kėdės už save.
Dear colleagues, please come here.
Please smile. Smile.
Very well.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Es jau tur beigās nebija.
Piedalīties šitajā diskusijā. Arī visu laiku sēdēju. Visi darbinieki var likt kā valdes. Vadītājs saņem 6000, pārējie piedzīvi. Dažreiz tā, es nesaprotu, tiešām visiem paceļ algas.
Dear colleagues, now we will have in some minutes, 5 or 10 minutes coffee break. After that, we will sign the statement, because the statement project is now in preparing procedure. And we will have translation after 5 or 10 minutes. So now it's 5 or 10 minutes coffee break. Inkas ir tribūna. O čia šitie šoniniai mikrofonai. Tai jų, nebent jeigu kas va.
Jeigu aš pradėsiu pirmininkauti, aš turiu nuspausti pirmininką.
Pirmininkas, o dabar...
O scena kada?
Okay, dear colleagues and guests, I'm inviting you to return back to our plenary session. And with my colleague, Foreign Ministry, we will sign the agreement on today's project. So, let's start. Dear colleagues and guests, now I'm inviting the chairmen of our delegations and foreign ministers to a press conference. And after 1 hour, we will have the lunch. So please, that's all. Thank you.